Heidi-ho, Internet surfers. Welcome to the first episode of MH Speaks, the official podcast of the porkchopexpress.wordpress.com. I'm MH Smith, and I will indeed speak. For those of y'all wondering, who is this MH Smith fella? Well, I'm a North Florida-based filmmaker and owner of Retrovision Studios since 2006, and blogger here at the Pork Chop Express since August of 2008. I'm a aspiring future author and co-host of the Anti-Plastic Cascade podcast with James Patrick Vaughn. I've been wanting to do weekly content on this blog for a long time, but just for various reasons haven't really been able to find a good method to do it. But I figured a solo podcast would probably be a good, easy way to get something on the site every week. So I'm giving it a shot. We'll see how well it works and or how long it lasts. The podcast will probably include project updates, various info on what I'm working on at this particular moment, or any other thing I feel like babbling about, interviews or talks with different friends who assist with my filmmaking process, or just creative people I know as a whole who need a voice and or another outlet to babble. I'll probably do reviews that I don't feel like typing out because I'm a lazy perfectionist, or really any sort of commentary on anything that comes to my mind during the course of that week. Think of it as just an extension of the blog, only audio instead of text. As I said, I plan on keeping this to a weekly release schedule. The plan I have at this point is to record on Wednesdays and post on Fridays, giving me that Thursday wiggle room to edit these podcasts and to accommodate seeing whatever new movie is out that week that I want to see. I'm going to try to keep the episode shortish. I mean shortish. As shortish as I can make shortish work. The most you're ever going to get out of me is probably going to be about 45 minutes, depending on the guest or what I'm talking about. The purpose of this episode, however, is to not only be an introduction to the podcast, but cover a topic that I've needed to cover for a while and just haven't been able to put into typed words well. My favorite genre, without a doubt, of film as a whole is horror. And I like watching horror movies, I like reviewing horror movies, and on occasion I've made a few horror movies. But trying to describe horror movies to people serves a bit difficult when you get into the fact that, what scares one person might not scare another. But the way I've been able to boil it down in describing it to different people is all horror fits into one of three categories. If I really put thought into it and really broke it down, there are probably a lot of subcategories, but there are three main categories. Your category 1s, your category 2s, and your category 3s. Again, in my experience, all horror can pretty much break down into these three. It all starts with your category 1s. A category 1 breaks down to not scary, but is either a fun, enjoyable watch or a train wreck. This covers a lot of modern horror. A lot of good bit of old school horror, but mostly modern horror to me. A good example of the not scary but fun, enjoyable to watch would be Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, which is probably my favorite of the Friday the 13th franchise. But it's definitely not scary. It's the first movie where we get zombie Jason, and really, for the most part, you hate most of the characters and are kind of rooting for Jason to kill. In fact, if I remember correctly, it has the highest body count of the franchise. Other examples of category 1s would be all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and to date, from what I've seen, all of the Hellraiser movies. Your category 2 movies are defined by scary while watching, but no lasting effects. A lot like a roller coaster. You get that adrenaline rush when you get on and it gets going and woo! Through the loops and through the speeds and through the turns and the drops and the lifts and the hip-ha woo-wah all the way around. But once it stops and your heart slows down, you're all in good shape. A cinematic definition of this would be, well, all the horror made by James Wan, which I truly love, but they do fit the good bit of an enjoyable, worth my time and money while I watch it. I'm not losing sleep over it, though. I apologize for the crazy, chaotic sounds you might be hearing in the background. I'm a cat owner and have a lot of cats. They're kind of running around hyper right now. Category 2 seems to be the most prevalent of good horror, And really, I think, is what horror filmmakers shoot for in a lot of cases. I mean, at the end of the day, filmmaking is all about entertaining an audience, and I think Category 2s are a good thing to aspire to. But that doesn't scratch the itch for full-on horror fans. No. Like roller coaster fans, we are hardcore adrenaline junkies, and what we live for are the Category 3s. A Category 3 is a world-altering film that sticks with you long after viewing and most likely will cause sleep loss, and or making you lock your doors quicker. Makes you more cautious about the world around you. You start putting yourself in those scenarios of, this could happen to me. Even if the scenario presented in the film is something way out of the realm of possible. Category 3s for me would be like the Blair Witch Project, which I only saw a couple years ago. I know, way late to the party, but, found footage has never really been my cup of tea. Blair Witch is a movie I've watched once. I would like to never watch it again, because really at this point in my life, I can't afford 2 weeks of no sleep. The Strangers from 2008 would be another good example of a Category 3. Now, an important thing to consider is, once you're in a category, its status can change. 9 times out of 10, Category 3s on multiple viewings will downgrade to Category 2s, but on a rare occasion, a Category 2 can upgrade to a Category 3, depending on viewing factors. And a good example of this would be The Shining, which is a good example of a Category 2 to Category 3. However, the original John Carpenter's Halloween, at least in my taste, has managed to go from a Category 3 to a Category 2 in the most recent watchings I've put for it. However, the original Halloween 2 still holds on to Category 3 status for me. Another good example of situational changes of categories would be Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Jaws is a Category 3 if you're about to get in the water, or if you're going to be nearing water shortly after viewing. Otherwise than that, or or another example of a Category 3 in Jaws would be Ben Gardner's head falling out of that boat. That's still a freaky moment for me. Like, I'm not going to lie, every now and then whenever I revisit Jaws, I don't watch that scene. It is a moment that will even make a seasoned veteran of myself close my eyes when that head falls out, because, well, it's freaky. It's a good puppet for 1975. I've needed to address the 3-category system for a while because in future reviews of horror that I do, I plan on boiling them down to their categories, because it'll make it easier to, at a quick glance, tell how scary a movie is. At least in my opinion. All of these podcasts will be opinion on my side. Do not take me as the gospel. I am one person. Really, once I finish with the Hellraiser series, I plan on implementing for all future horror past that the 3-category system ranking. So I needed this to be the introduction to it. But since I want this podcast to be a short podcast, and all I had to really do here was introduce the 3-category system, I'm going to go ahead and cut this off now. Before I go, though, I do have a question for you, the listener. What do you want to hear me babble about? I'm up for suggestions. I'll answer questions. I'll enjoy topics. I will, if you have advice on people you would like me to hear on this podcast, please let me know. Send an email with your suggestions, questions, comments, concerns, and complaints to mhspeakspodcast@gmail.com, or tweet me on my official Twitter @mhsmith22. If you can include the hashtag MHSpeaks, that would be really helpful for picking these out. But I read and see everything it's tweeted to me, so I'll probably address it anyway. Again, thanks for listening. Tune in next time. I'm MH Smith, and I have spoken.